Whoops. Okay, so we're going to look at, as we mentioned, there's an unmanaged package that we make available, which comes with 5 pre-built process builder flows in them. It's unmanaged, so they can be cloned and modified, or they can, almost every customer will make a new version of them. They do come in active, so at a minimum you want to go in after install and make them inactive while you evaluate them and see if you want to make modifications, and then once you've thought things through and made any modifications, you can activate them as a new version. So I'm going to walk us through these in the sequence that they, sort of the chronological sequence across the life cycle of a piece of mail that they're likely to fire. They all evaluate and run off the mailer history object. They all start with the word PrintSF, so you can find them together. And I'll start with when somebody submits an order, be it for 1 piece of mail to a leader contact or to 100 or 1,000 pieces of mail to a campaign or report. After submission, over the next 10 or 15 minutes, our sync process runs and will insert records into the mailer history object. And upon creating those records, the first flow that would fire is this PrintSF mailer created update to lead and contacts. And all 5 of these flows are going to look almost identical. So what we cover right now is going to be applicable 90% to the other 4 flows we're going to talk about. So if this takes a little while, don't worry. We're not going to do this on every one. As I said, these flows are looking at the mailer history object, and each time, in this case, a mailer history is created. I'm going to click on that so you can see the conditions are that if it's going to evaluate, is this mailer history that's been created related to a contact? Does the lookup from the mailer history have a value in it pointing at a contact? And if that's true, and the other one is just evaluating that there's a create date in there, which there will be. So what we're saying here is it related to a contact? If so, it's going to go update the contact, and it's going to update 4 fields: the PrintSF last mailer status date, which is going to copy up that date from the mailer history. At the moment of creation, there probably is no last status date yet because it's not even in the mail stream yet. The last mailer status, which will be pending at this point, and then it'll record the template ID or number that was mailed, as well as the template name. The template name's a friendly thing to see, but if you're building follow-on emails or triggers over in Pardot or other marketing automation system, it's a little more best practice to based on the number. So if the name changes, it doesn't break things. So mailer history was inserted. It's related to a contact. Go ahead and update the contact record. If it's not related to a contact, it continues down to the next evaluation mode here, and it's looking to say, is it related to a lead? It's saying, is the lead lookup null? If that's false, that means it's related to a lead. But before we reach out and try and update that lead, we want to make sure the lead's not converted. So it's saying it's related to a lead, but is the is converted field true? Because if it is, then we're going to stop right there, and we're going to go and we're going to we're actually going to, on the mailer history, clear the relationship with the lead and make it related to the contact. So something gets sent out, and then 2 hours later somebody converts the lead to a contact, and this prevents us from throwing errors trying to update a convert lead, and reestablishes the relationship of the mailer history to the contact. If it's related to a lead that's not converted, it's still a lead, then that won't be true, and it'll head on down here to a mailer history is created, and it's related to a lead, appears related to a lead, and the lead is not converted, then it'll head on over and say, let's update the lead, and it's just updating those same fields that we talked about on the contact. So that is the first one of these, again, when the mailer history gets created. The rest of them are almost exactly the same, but they're just looking for a little bit different status or set of circumstances. So we talked about this first one that's likely to fire, that the mailer was created. Now, over the hours following order submission, PrintSF, before going to print production, will run the national change of address validation or check on all the mailer records. And in that process, usually a small percentage may pick up a move forwarding event, and an even smaller percentage might pick up, there's a move forwarding filed, but we can't forward it. They moved out of the country or didn't leave a forwarding address. So let's look at this one. So normally the mailer would be created within 10 minutes after submission, and then later in the afternoon when we process all of our orders for the day, the NCOA process will run, and for a small subset of records will cause a sync to occur. Everything's the same here. We're evaluating, is it a contact? It's a contact, and the NCOA result field on the mailer history record has been forwarded, set as forwarded, and then if that's the case, we'll go and we'll update the contact with, we'll stamp down here, PrintSF last move forward date with today's date, and then this is important, out of the box, we're actually going to update then the standard mailing fields, mailing address fields on the contact record. It's about 50-50 in terms of our customers that do or don't want us to do that. So if you don't want our system to update addresses when mail gets forward on the contacts, then it's very important that you clone this and then remove these fields from the actions or update steps. Does that make sense? Mark, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's okay. All right, and then honestly, the rest of this is exactly as before. If it's not, mailer history is not related to a contact, it's related to a lead, we're going to check and see if it's a converted lead, and if it is, we're going to bail out of this, and we're going to update the we're going to update the lead. Yeah, we're going to update the lead as is converted. Yep, sorry, we're evaluating, is the mailer history forwarded? Is it related to a lead, and is the lead converted? And if so, we're going to update the mailer history to point to contact. Then it's related to a lead that has not been converted. We're going to go update the lead record the same way. And again, if you don't want us to update addresses with forwarding addresses on your lead record, then you'll want to clone this and you'll want to strip these 4 fields off. So we fired one when things got created. We fired one for a small subset of records if mail got forwarded. This NCOA can't forward is the exact same thing we just looked at. It's just that when we update, we're not updating the address because there is no new forwarding address, and we're stamping the last move forward date as well as the last address fail date and the last address fail error with the appropriate values for moved, can't forward, and so on. I'll go back. So those two were related to move forwarding, and again, only fire in very limited circumstances when mail gets forwarded. Now the mail enters the mail stream, and in the days that follow, we start to pick up delivery tracking, and we get a status change to delivered. And so what this one does is watches and waits for a status of delivered on a mailer history record, and I'll drill in here. Same thing, status got changed to delivered, update the contact. Again, this one takes the liberty of saying, hey, you know, the mail got delivered, you know, let's go ahead and update the addresses fields because it got delivered. And realistically, that might just be subtle changes to the address fields, like we added zip +4 or made a directional change on the street name. Again, I leave it up to you as to whether you want to have our system take that liberty. You can clone this and strip those off. And then the rest of this is the same setup. Is it a converted lead or is it related to a lead? And they make the same types of updates. Normally, that's the last process flow that fires for any given mailer history record, except in a limited number of circumstances, in the days that follow it showing up as delivered, we pick up return mail scans in the postal stream indicating that that piece of mail went out for delivery, showed as delivered, but then it got sent back as not deliverable. So in that case, we're checking to see if we're picking up a status on mailer history of returned, and if we are, we're bouncing over to the contactor lead, and we're putting in an address fail date and fail error because customers typically want to have some reports that show me all my leads or contacts that have failed, have address failures, and we consider a return an address failure. And then we're stamping the last status date, the last mailer status, and the PrintSF last mail return date. So that's it. There's 5 of them. Again, the first one fires when something gets created, a mailer history gets created, then, and that will happen for every piece of mail. Then the next one, these 2 only fire under limited circumstances of us picking up a move forward or a moved can't forward. And then some days later, in about 97% of mailers sent, we're able to derive the delivery status as delivered. That will fire. And then depending on the quality of your data, some percentage, typically a couple of percent or whatever the number is for your use case, will show up as returned, and those will fire. So that's an overview, and our suggestion is to install these, make them all inactive, go in and look at them, decide if you want our process builders to update mailing address fields on leads and contacts. If not, clone them and strip those field updates off for reactivating. And frankly, if you don't need all of these, then leave them inactive. You really only need the ones that, if you're not worried about move forwards, you don't need to turn these on. We have customers, honestly, that only care to know when mail is delivered and or returned, and so they only make those 2 active. And that's my overview.